What are the one or two things that you see startups most often get wrong when it comes to commercializing edtech products that if they could understand from day one, it would save them the headache of having to pivot down the line?
One of the things that me and Burn does, and Burn our investors, was it's very easy to look at the first examples of something that are successful and extrapolate from there. We, in the early days, we introduced our first paid certificates on a few courses. So we only had a few courses. We had about 30, 40 courses by this stage. By the end, we had 1,000 by the time I left. I can't remember what those first courses were, but when we offered people a chance to buy a certificate at the end of the course, 2, 3, 4% of people did. So we go back to our projections and go, okay, we're going to 10x the number of courses. Each one of them is going to have this 2, 3%. Happy days. The numbers look really healthy. And that was the story we sold to our investors. And it was a very plausible story. But what then happened was when you had 100 courses, not 40, they did not behave the same way as those first 40. And part of the reason was that those first 40 were the flagship courses for many of our universities. They were the first ones they were doing. They were the ones that put loads of effort and PR behind, and the academics really cared for them and nurtured the communities that were building up in them. There were much higher quality experiences than then the second, third, or fourth run of that course, or the second, third, or fourth course that was coming out of that university, by which stage the whole university had maybe was getting a little bored of the whole MOOC story or whatever. But also, those first courses, you picked them for a reason. They're your real like bankers. And I've operated as a consultant at various points since being at FutureLearn, before I started at QA as well. And I've seen people doing it, and I've seen them do that. This first course has been brilliant, so therefore, here's the linear growth curve that comes after it. Beware, because just try and anticipate what the dynamics of real scale are, because they'll be very different to the early days.
Is there a magic number or a particular point at which can be safer to extrapolate?
You just got to be realistic. In the early days, you're looking at very sparse amounts of data. And so you're having to make fairly wild assumptions from it. So just try and be honest with yourself about leaving a variety of scenarios that could flow from that very small sample size you're starting with. And then be rigorous about checking in and testing your assumptions as they're changing. And it wasn't just us who did this. I saw our investors come in and just apply a playbook and go, oh, yeah, we've seen this happen in other companies. It's going to do this and this. And it's really persuasive. You're like, oh, okay, that's fantastic. We're going to get swept along in this tech playbook. It doesn't happen, or it didn't happen. I guess applying that dose of pragmatism, reality as well, and operational nous to the data, finding the right balance.